What's up, everyone? Matt here in the garage, aka my living room. Got something in the mail recently that I'm a little excited about, so I wanted to make a video about it as a small update. Also, wanted to kind of turn this video into talk about transmissions, specifically for obviously the 2.5 liter Volkswagens, whether it's the 5-speed or the 6-speed swap guys. You know, Rabbit, Jetta, Passat, Beetle, whatever model you have. But if you're using the 0845 5-speed manual, O2M or O2Q 6-speed transmissions, I'm going to talk about some of this because I think there's certain things you should do to upgrade the transmission just to have it last a really long time for daily use with light spirited driving, heavy daily driving, or the once in a while drag race down the strip. Or if you're boosting it, making a shit ton of power, and you just don't really want things to break as often. So, there's cars out there like the Mark IV Supra, pretty much all the late model Skylines from R32 and up. Well, I'm not too sure about the R35, but anyway, C6 Z06 transmission from the Corvette, stuff like that. They're all built from Getrag. Those transmissions are strong as hell. Of course, they didn't come factory in a car that made 170 horsepower. It was, twin turbo Supra makes 320. The C6 Z06 made 505, I think it was. And the Skylines are a little over 300 as well. So there's a bit of a difference there, but still, I like strong transmissions, and that's why I like a lot of those cars, because they're so damn fucking strong to go along with the speed. But anyway, I also love my 5-cylinder Jetta, and I've modified it quite a bit, and I'm going to be boosting it soon, and I would like my transmission to be as strong as either other car. So it's possible, but there's a lot to go into it. Now, on the basic side, if you just daily drive the car, you don't drive it that hard, maybe you do some spirited driving, maybe you race once in a while. I think with the 5 speeds, it's really important to just upgrade the differential and potentially steal shift forks, okay? So if you do enough research, if it hasn't already happened to you, if it has, then you already know that the differential is a problem in a lot of the 5 speeds. So from my experience, my differential failed at 72,000 miles in my Jetta, and I bought the car brand new, so I knew how it was driven the whole time, and it was driven hard. So 62,000 miles or 72,000 miles, the transmission failed while I was driving. I wasn't even driving it hard at the time. I literally downshifted into third gear to beat a yellow light, and the clutch started slipping. And what happened was the ring gear that's on the differential was coming loose because the rivets weren't holding it in place well, and it grinded a hole in the case that led to the clutch housing. So gear oil left the gear case and went to the clutch housing and soaked the clutch and made it slip. And that was it. There was no babying it and waiting till I had money to swap the transmission. It was done for, but luckily it had an extended warranty, so it was covered. Now, if that same thing happens to someone that it's their only car, it's their daily driver, and they're driving normal one day, they go to downshift and beat a light, and then the transmission fails and they don't have a warranty, that's a big issue. So, and honestly, unless you're swapping a transmission out of a junkyard, if you can't do it yourself and you take it to a shop, it's going to cost you a lot more than the cost of a limited slip differential to have them fix or swap out your transmission. So even though the cost of a limited slip differential, including labor to install it, would be more than just paying a reputable shop to swap the 5-speed out, it's actually a better option to do that because you'd be doing it preventatively. Since I've went through it a couple times, I had the differential failure. I had my shift forks broke on me when I was racing a nitrous Monte Carlo and a turbo Integra on a private road. I had that break on me when the shift fork broke. It was one and done. I couldn't move forward anymore. I had to get towed. I was an hour away from my house. Very inconvenient. Um, but I was lucky each time. The first time my transmission failed, I had the extended warranty. The second time it failed, I had just enough money to swap a 6-speed in there, and I also happened to have someone with me that could drive me all the way to my house. And of course, it was towed and all that good stuff. So I think it's something to think about. The 5 speeds, they have their issues. I had almost nothing done to my Jetta when the 5-speed initially broke from the differential. So you don't have to have, a boosted motor to tear apart the transmission. So 5-speed guys, I would recommend doing an LSD, whether it's Pelican or WaveTrack. I think there's another brand out there, but those two are the most common ones, very reputable. I've done a lot of research on them, and I guess from a real technical aspect of what they can do in and out of corners, WaveTrack is a better option performance-wise, but they're both limited slip differentials. They both give you more traction when you're, trying to launch or going in and out of a corner on the throttle, and they also both give you the same benefit of the reliability when you're getting rid of the stock differential. So I got a limited slip in the mail. This is actually from my guy out in California, Nemanja, and I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, but he sent me this Pelican LSD. I actually put it in the WaveTrack box just to make it look prettier, but this was in his Mark 6 Golf 2.5. He boosted it, put the LSD in it, and he was running it for maybe a few months tops, so this thing's barely used, and I got it from him. He's going all-wheel drive now, so we can't use the LSD because it's specific to all-wheel drive or front-wheel drive models. And I was very lucky that I was able to do that, buy this differential from him, because new, they're $1,200 basically. And so it's a very tall hill to climb to get one, for a lot of people. So I want to say thanks to him. Also, I wanted to talk about the shift forks. I got some steel shift forks over here, and these are OEM parts, but they don't offer them. They don't come in the transmissions from the factory on Mark 5 transmissions and most Mark 6. The steel shift forks, they come in some Mark 6s, but I think it's just the latest models, maybe the 2014. They do come in the Mark 7s. Now this is the OEM part number here. I can't remember which one is which. Basically one of them is from first to second gear, the other one's from third to fourth. But either way, when it comes time to install them, I'll be able to find out on the parts catalog through Volkswagen. So this one right here, the part number is 02M311559P as in Paul. And this one here, hopefully I can get it to show up in the video. 02M311549Q as in quail. Now those are the two part numbers for those shift forks. And you can use that to look them up and shop around and find them for a good price, because if you go to somewhere like ECS Tuning, they have them. They offer both of them, I believe, as a kit, and they're like $380 or something like that, which isn't too bad, but I think I spent like $280. So, and I owe that to Josh Torzidlow, another cool member from the 2.5 group, another boosted guy. He helped me shop around and find things for a lot cheaper than you get it from like the Walmart of German auto parts store, online stores. I got the fuel pump and injectors for a noticeably lesser price than what those websites show. So thank you for that. That goes a long way, because the first thing people say when someone asks, how much does it cost to boost my Rabbit? Everyone's like, oh, you can do it, but it's super expensive. It'll cost you 10 grand. And it can. I can't argue if that's not an average cost at the end of it all, but it really depends. I think if you're really smart about shopping around with the prices and buying things used that are feasible, things that don't really go bad, like an intake manifold, exhaust manifolds are questionable, because if it's an old C2 Motorsports exhaust manifold, you can buy one used and think it's okay, and then when you get it, it has a little crack in it. But anyway, I don't want to get too off topic and start talking about the motor, because I talk about it all the time. So, but back to the transmission things. Alright, so even if you're 5-speed, don't have a whole lot of things done to your car, but you plan on having it for a real long time, you drive it hard, and you don't want to risk breaking things and being stranded. Maybe you have a small family. I have a kid, so if my car's down, I have expenses that are more of a priority than just the car. So I definitely don't want to have to shell out another $900 or more to fix a transmission issue when that could go to Christmas gifts or whatever. So that's something to really take into consideration. Preventative maintenance with upgrading the parts instead of just buying new things in case they break. A limited slip differential goes a long way. It'll make the car more fun to drive, and you want to worry about the differential failing. Steel shift forks. If you drive real hard, you have a tendency of banging gears. Maybe you grind every now and then. Eventually, you're going to bend the shift fork, and it's going to make you grind even more, and it's going to make it to where it'll eventually break if you just keep driving it hard like that. That's what happened to me. It's exactly what happened to me. So, you live and learn, and I'm more than happy to pass on the information of my mistakes and my experiences. So, now there's a lot more things you can do. If you're boosting the car and you're trying to get a lot of power out of it, say 400 wheel, 500 plus, there's a few guys in the 2.5 group that have made that kind of power and more. I know Josh Pashis out of Pennsylvania with Nothing Leaves Stock. I know he's familiar with some pretty powerful turbo setups. Elias Salazar, I think he's in the Carolinas. He has, he's had a 500 plus wheel horsepower Rabbit, and now, from what I understand, it's under the knife to be making more. And there's things you can do to upgrade the transmission to where you don't have to really worry about breaking anything. But this is like pretty much top level, right? When you want to just dump all your extra income into the car, make as much power as you can, and at the same time you want to just beef everything up around it. If people are like, you got to upgrade your brakes, you got to upgrade your clutch, upgrade your motor mounts, stuff like that, and that's obvious. But when you aren't familiar with the failures of a Volkswagen transmission, and you're boosting the 5-cylinder, these things are addictingly fast. Like, mine's still naturally aspirated, and I beat on it every day because it's still so much fun, especially when it's running great. In the wintertime when it's cold out, I can't keep my foot off the fucking floor. Anyway, so I have an O2Q 6-speed from a 2011 Mark 6 GTI, and I'm going to be doing the steel shift forks and LSD. I have a stage 2 clutch in there right now from Black Forest Industries, stage 2 with the light and steel flywheel. I have Black Forest Industries stage 2 engine transmission mount, 034 dogbone mount, and subframe mounts. So everything's kind of beefed up and stiffened into place in preparation for having a lot more torque when this motor finally goes in. But I've been sitting down in my spare time and thinking, what else can I do to make the transmission stronger, like a Getrag transmission out of a Supra? What can I do to make this transmission shift faster if I want to do no-lift shifts and hold endless amounts of torque without worrying about breaking things? What can I do to my transmission to make it to where I can go to the drag strip with drag radials on the front and launch it hard with like anti-lag, right? Which, by the way, the only time you should be using anti-lag is when you're fucking launching, not in a parking lot with a bunch of 16-year-olds, okay? That's my opinion. Anyway, so with the steel shift forks, there's other things that someone actually pointed out to me. Right here, you can see on the tip of the steel shift fork, if I can learn how to talk clearly, these have little plastic tips on them that go on the slider, right? They make brass ones to where they eliminate those wearing out eventually. There's a lot of things like that on the car. The stock shifter, right? The stock shifter in the car, just above the ball, there's a little plastic knob that comes out, and there's an iron rod that comes in and connects to it for the reverse and first gear leverage. I think it's for the side to side. I can't exactly remember. But it's a piece of plastic that comes out. It has like a little film of urethane, plastic, whatever the hell's made out of that goes over it. Well, it wears out, it gets a flat spot, it gets dry and cracks and falls apart, just like the shifter shaft bushings do. So being that this has a little film of plastic on the tips of those as well, I don't really trust it to last forever either. So they make brass fittings that go on the end of those. And with this you know, with these other aftermarket parts to beef up the transmission, I'm going to find them and link them in the description so you can see what I'm talking about, since I'm not painting the picture too well of what these parts actually do. So I'll put them all in the description. So there's those. Also, on the 6-speed, the O2Q, I kind of learned this more recently. On a stock 2.5, it's not an issue. On a boosted 2.5, on a basic setup, making like 250, 300 pounds of torque, it's not a big deal. But if you're making about 400 to 450 pounds of torque to the wheels or more, from what I've been told, there's an issue with the shaft that fourth gear is on, right? When you're making that kind of torque, they say maybe it's only when you're in fourth gear, I think, maybe because the ratio, or maybe that's just when the gear that fails is at like the peak torque. I'm not too sure. But anyway, the fourth gear on the shaft, when you're making about that much torque, when you're engaged in full throttle, the two gears tend to flex, they mesh together crooked because the shaft itself is flexing. So there's actually a modification you can get and install. It's a bit invasive, where you take the whole transmission apart and just get the empty case. You drill a hole in the side of it and put this brass pin in there that has a concave cut out, and it fits up against the shaft and has like a preload to it. And you bolt it in place, and it's adjustable, and of course it's watertight, so you don't have your gear oil leaking out. And that's the fix for that shaft that flexes under, you know, an excessive amount of torque. And there's other things. There's these bolts, these like brackets that have long rods that go through the whole casing, from the clutch housing to the outside where the shaft bearing is, and it bolts it all together to kind of keep the transmission case from breaking and falling apart. That's with like high horsepower, high torque, hard launches that can happen, you know. So there's a few things out there. Like I said, I'm gonna try to find all the links and put them in the description. So for anyone who's been like me, sitting there thinking, what else can I do to this transmission to make it super strong? I don't have to worry about breaking anything. Most 2.5 owners are not worried about this, but you know, I am. So I'm gonna share what I know so far. I think that's all I got as far as an update, and you know, that's all I got for the transmission discussion. So there'll be more to come, I'm sure. I'm learning every single day, and this is going to be a long process. So the more I know, the more I learn, the more I share. I get messages from people daily, honestly, about questions with tune, transmission swaps, you know, what else is done in my car and whatever. And I reply to every single person, just like I do on the comment section on YouTube. So I don't mind. This is you know, this is what I'm all about right here. So anyway, that's the end of this video. I'm sure there'll be another one as soon as I can come up with some more content. So I'll see you guys later. Bye.